So if everybody's okay, why don't we just get started with a quick review? Because gosh, doesn't it feel like it's a long time?
Yeah, it has
I
been.
mean, it was March 22nd. A lot happened.
Month.
I know.
Almost.
So I'm going to start with my sad news is from March 22nd. My father, who was in great health, I mean, the guy was 96, walking, laughing, doing his own taxes. Brilliant man. He passed away March 28th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it's been a whirlwind ever since then. But you know what? It also made me think too about what we do in real estate. So when you have those kinds of major events that occur, it feels like one of the things that happens, or at least it was for me, all those daily routines are upended. So for a little while now, I feel like things that were just matter of course to me, it's way off. And one of the things I did to kind of bring myself back to being grounded, I don't know if any of you have done a quarterly report for yourself. So on the first quarter, have you looked at, okay, I've got XYZ number of listings, I've got XYZ number of buyers, I increased my contacts by whatever. Anybody ever do any of that kind of thing for a first quarter, kind of look at what you do?
Not yet. I don't have the data yet.
You know what? And you kind of think you don't have the data, but you know what, Candace? I bet you've done a lot of different real estate activities, and those things count.
Yeah.
Every
that's true.
time you're sending out notices or picking up the phone, if you keep track of those activities, it can help you evaluate where your time is being spent. Has anybody done any CMAs, even a practice CMA?
Yeah, I've done 2 or 3 of those.
So those are things that I would encourage you. It keeps your skills active. When somebody is deceased, one of the things that happens is you have to get a current market evaluation. Well, the attorneys will require an appraisal, which is expensive, or you can offer 2 CMAs from licensed real estate brokers. You know what? I'm thinking, I wonder if that isn't an in to market your services that way. So I'm going to say, to me, that might be like a specialty, offering that kind of service. We don't charge anything for a CMA. But I think, like, so,
Eileen,
yeah,
can I interrupt? So we don't charge except for when it is for that case.
okay.
People do charge $500. And we have had that many times, but
Okay,
yeah,
I think it's a good avenue.
yeah.
I think it's a good, at least a starting place for somebody who might feel like that could be a good market for them.
Can I ask a
Um,
question?
Sure.
I'm sorry. So when you say 2 from brokers, do they have to be 2 different brokers or just 2 CMAs?
So what I learned, at least in my circumstance, they want 2 different brokers
Okay.
offering the CMA. So for example, because I felt it would be conflict of interest for me to provide the CMA, I went to 2 different brokers my father lived on Bainbridge to provide that information. And it taught me a big lesson. I got from one broker, I got back a letter, and that was it. And I thought, it's very likely with these properties when you do a CMA for them that the people are thinking they're going to sell. So that broker had an opportunity to impress me and did not. So I at least have that one source to turn in. I don't even know if the attorneys will take it because it's just a brief letter stating his opinion. The other broker did what I look at as a standard CMA. Even that shocked me because for valuations, for example, one of the things that's interesting in this market again is we don't have a lot of properties on the market for sale. And the transactions that we've had, it's been like a piecemeal. It's been item after item after item that has gone off the shelves. So when you're trying to find the CMA that works, comparable properties, it's pretty limited. So even though the report is limited, how you present that material could make a huge difference. And it was so clear to me when I looked at the two presentations. One person put an effort into it, the other person offered their feedback and opinion. Both of them fine. And then it kind of compelled me, so I did my own just to see what I would come up with and what my presentation looked like. So I'm going to encourage you guys, even if it's for your own property, try and do a CMA on it and see what you think of the product of your CMA. Because I'll tell you, the first guy is not going to get hired to represent that property. The second person very likely will be. So that's just things that were entering my mind as I was rethinking what we did in the couple of weeks prior, March 22nd. I went back and I looked at some books that I had. In fact, in the office today, I had a listing book from 2007. It was pretty clean. It said, here's your 12-week plan. I'm going 12 weeks. We're really talking about 12 hours now, get it done. So some of the things, God, they were really cute. I'm kind of proud of myself. I had really nice postcards that would go out before and after. I had nice little picture cards that were just like a business card presentation of the property. Did a lot of things. We don't have time for it now. The properties are sold even before I get the product back. So our timetable is different. But I don't think our effort should be any different. And I do think that the idea of, I don't know, is it prospecting or at least marketing yourself in those communities with before and after is still a good idea. I wonder if anybody's done anything with the farming. Remember we had some meetings some time ago about farming and how to do that? No?
I have a couple, I just today went down, I bought door hangers. So I was actually
Oh,
pounding the pavement and putting, putting door hangers on people's, wherever I could get them to attach. So I did a few of
how
those.
come your hair looks so good? Because it was hailing out there. was
I know, I
awful.
drove up and I was just started to rain. So I sat in the car for a minute and then the sun came out just long enough for me to do this one quick, area that I had staked out. And then,
Good for you.
and then I sent out a postcard to just one condo community yesterday.
So honestly, when you're doing a quarterly evaluation, that might be more than what you've done in the quarters prior to.
Right.
So I guess I'm trying to say, you guys give yourself some credit. Start looking at the things that you are doing. And I'm hoping that you'll be encouraged because even myself, I needed to pick me up. I was feeling pretty down and I was feeling like I wasn't getting anywhere. But I started looking at, okay, so actually here's what I did do. And realized there's a lot more activity that you may not be giving yourself credit for. It doesn't mean every time we get the buyer, every time we get the seller, but it's those activities that are going to get you there. So it's certainly much better than waiting for someone to come knocking on your door and ask you to do
Right.
so. do whatever needs to be done.
How do you track that, Eileen? Is it on a spreadsheet or what do you recommend to just track it?
So some people are so clever, they do things like spreadsheets. Yeah, no, I don't. You want to know? I don't know if you can, this is how I track it. Q1. And I know that my goal in 2022, I want 6 buyers. I want to complete 6 buyer contracts. I have 1 out of 6. So that's a start. I want to have 6 listings. I have 1 out of 6. I wanted to increase my rental contracts. I have 3 new rental contracts. I've committed to working as a mentor, and 2 of the mentors that I've worked with, each of them have finished. Well, one's almost done, but both of them have been working with the buyer, and both of them have been successful working towards a close. So, and I started, that first mental look at yourself like, oh, I only really have it 1 transaction. Well, no, there's a lot that's been going on. And I think sometimes you have to do that, is look at what your activities have been in real estate. I also think that when you do look at that, it gives you a chance to say, oh, I want to do that differently, or I want to increase that, or whatever it is to evaluate it. So last time when we were talking about all the different parts and pieces for a listing. This agenda I put together, I want to talk about the Northwest MLS. For years, I didn't know that the MLS will actually input your listing. You can send them your listing information and they'll input it. That's a time saver. I'm a really slow typist, but I like to type it in because it puts it in my brain better. But that's one thing, when you get a listing, did you guys already know you can ask MLS to input your listing? Showing time. I'm still not confident with showing time, but they do have the little video that you can watch. So showing time is where you go, like when you have a listing, I want the showing time box on my listing because I want all the brokers going through showing time. It's a really good tool to get feedback, and it's a good tool to keep track of whoever has been showing. And stats. Has anybody looked at the stats that they have, stat information on the Northwest MLS? So that's a pretty cool tool as well, because if
that the
you
one that's in
want
InfoSpark?
to, pardon me?
Is that the one that's in InfoSparks?
Same kind of thing, yes. InfoSparks is part of that. You
Okay.
can plug in the community you're interested in and get the specifics for that area. So I really like doing that because it gives me a balance of, these are not all the same communities. I work in some really smaller communities. I also work in some more busy communities. So when I run my stats reports, I don't want all of whatever. I want it really focused. And those reports will help you be able to look at that information. If anybody's doing a contact list, so say April is a great time to send out an email that's got a stat report for that basic community, just to introduce yourself, just to say, hey, this is what's been going on in your community in the housing market, and give them some facts from the MLS. I've not used it a lot ever, but they've got the IMS stores. Physically, when we used to go for classes, physical classes, the MLS offices had supplies there. So sometimes I'd get ideas from what was there, but they also would have supplies, things like, oh, the shoe removal bins and footy coverings and shoe signs and all kinds of signage. So just know that that's available through their stores. But probably the number one tool that I really like to use there is the financial tools. If I'm dealing with the seller, they always want to know what the net proceeds are going to be. If I'm dealing with a buyer, they always want to know what that picture is going to look like, with how much down and what kind of financing. Their lender will do that for them too. But certainly for the sellers, you're the main contact for the financial tool for the seller to tell them what they could expect. It's always an estimate on the financial tools. Anybody else have anything else on those items? And I'm just presuming it's something that you probably all have at least partially worked with. But if you do your CMA, maybe go in and do a financial tool for it. Like seller, if you're gonna sell this at this price, here's what it's gonna look like on the when net proceeds when you finalize this transaction. Open house. Has anybody been involved in an open house in the last several months? Good for you, Janice. What was your experience? Where was it? You're on mute. I need you.
I'm trying to get
Thank
my
you.
I'm trying to get my mouse to go on the right button. There was one in Mukilteo and
Oh.
one in Shoreline.
So did you have a lot of traffic? How did you handle the open house?
Both of them were, I mean, they were 2 to 3 hours. I can't remember on a Saturday. One was Saturday, one was Sunday. But the Mukilteo one had, yeah, it was backed up against a golf course and small square footage, but there were probably 18 or so that came through.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And I think there were, I don't know, 9 offers.
Wow. So I did one recently and I ordered, remember I talked about getting the handbook from the title companies? They're like $10 or $15. I had ordered that and then I put some of our information in it, like the Form 17, seller disclosure, and beefed it up a little bit with some information that people might be interested in. So they would pause in the home. I put out the signs. I did not do pre-postcards because the listing went active on Thursday and the open house was on Saturday. The first hour was quiet, like scary quiet. That was Saturday, 11 to 12. And I thought, wow, usually my Saturdays are busier times. But from 12 to 2, it was nonstop. It was a constant crowd. When COVID was such an active concern, I used to have those sign-up sheets there so we could connect with them for COVID. It used to be a practice that we would have a booklet and people would sign in. That was mostly for the brokers. That was so brokers could touch base and see if you could capture a client that way. But this was or at least in my experience, I think it's a different feel. It's like people have already seen everything online. They have the information from the online resources. They're just trying to get a physical feel of the property and go through the home. I'm going to say probably 50% of them were with their brokers. So that was something else with open house that I thought was a little bit different. I still use the foot coverings. I still use the supplies, the hand sanitizer, because I just feel like it's respectful and I have the masks out. So I don't know if anybody else is continuing that habit, but I like it. It's kind of like now when I see in our fast food places, when I see them using the gloves, those little see-through gloves when they're cooking, I think, oh, good. So one of the good things that happened with that. Anyway, it's a practice. I think that's well done, but it made me realize something else. A lot of brokers are not leaving their cards. They got out of the habit of it. And so now it's time to get back into that good habit. So we did the showings, open house on Saturday. Sunday, there were some independent showings. And my client called me and said, Eileen, they left the lights on, they left the door unlocked, and no card. Yeah, that wasn't good. You can still, because of showing time, you can still go back and look and see who accessed that lockbox. But I thought, boy, maybe this is a good time to say, you guys, when we're showing, we've got to be really careful about those properties. And leave your cards, leave them out on the table. But that's a good marketing tool too. Responding to inquiries. When we list a home and you've got so many calls, you still have a responsibility to be quick about replying to those inquiries. So I put in my notes, there's a courtesy and some timing. Even if you have to reply back, I'll call you back tonight or whatever it is, but to let people know that you appreciate their inquiry and then make sure that you do get back to whoever has called. Anxious brokers who are trying desperately to get something going for their buyers. You know what that feels like? Every one of us has had to be there. Anxious sellers who, even though they know the process, it's high anxiety for them. Yeah, so I'm just going to say we need to be back in those good habits of leaving the cards and being thoughtful about the home and being very, very professional and careful about how we leave that home. Everybody should know that the only one who gets access to that lockbox with your number and your identification is yourself. You don't offer your key to anybody else or your code to anyone else. There's some basic things that I think for our next meeting, I want to make sure we go through some of those basic rules and what the major experiences have been that have caused some brokers some difficulty. Then I wrote down receiving offers. I was surprised because I heard it more than once. I was surprised that we had to offer, according to the MLS rules, we're supposed to offer every single offer that comes in on that property. So really and truly, even during those times when you have 28 offers, you're supposed to be able to say, here's this offer, this is the component parts of this offer. I was surprised by that. I know we went to a spreadsheet, kind of a spreadsheet, fill in the blanks. Brenda, you said you didn't like that way of presenting that spreadsheet information. I don't know if you found something you like better.
No, I mean, it is what we have. So, that's the best we, as far as to keep in regulations. At the bottom, it does have the seller sign. I can't remember if it says they've seen them all or they request not to see all of them. I can't remember the exact verbiage. But I would like to have it spread out differently. That's my main thing about that worksheet. And I mean, Roxanne and I worked on one of her listings last year. Remember that, Roxanne? You had a multiple offer situation. Yeah, and so we had to use that form, but it's confusing, you know. So we will hope to try to,
Sorry.
we'll try to get something different, but
I'm not
thought-
seeing
I
as
thought
many
it
multiple
was pretty
offers.
good. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was okay. But
yeah.
I thought it was a lot easier than trying to put one down and talk about it, put another down and talk about it. Because
Oh, no,
it's way
I
too much information.
right, I agree with you. I think that it's great for us brokers because we understand what all the abbreviations are and what it is and, you know, all of that. But buyers are, I mean, sellers are not particularly going to understand that form. And they're signing that they basically are okay with whatever way you're going to show them the offers.
Okay, and then to letter or not to letter, I know we've had different conversations on that. But accompanying those offers, when you have those sellers, some brokers I notice have been putting in their listing, we don't want your letters. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And
There's a new rule coming out and I just had it somewhere on this desk. Anyway, there's a new rule coming out like April 27th regarding the letters, or they're talking about it, something on the MLS.
but we don't know which way that's leaning.
Not yet.
I will be really, okay, I'm gonna throw out an opinion. I'll be really surprised if they say it's okay. I will, because I think that
Are the
it
brokers?
sure opens up a lot of opportunity for abuse.
Yeah, they're saying it's steering, and it is.
Yeah. Why are the
So,
brokers, why are the brokers saying they don't want the letters? Do you know what's behind that? They just don't want to deal with the additional information?
no, I would say that it's even more than that. I would say there's a fear factor of you're putting your client at risks. I'll give you a brief example. So the seller is a military guy. The offer comes from another military guy. But the other three are not. And now you've got the letters coming from the military family saying, well, we're military and treat us a little more special, that kind of thing. Yeah, it made me do a double take, especially with work I've done over on Whidbey Island when it's all military. So yeah, that would be my fear factor is, are you opening it up to a discrimination
Mm,
by putting in those letters?
okay.
yeah, because they can mention family and you're not supposed to say kids, husband, married, not married, who you're married to,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So
Okay.
So I would be surprised if they encourage the letters. I think they're gonna steer away from it, but I don't know yet. And responding to offers. So, everybody's anxious. Whether it's the one offer or the 28th offer, they're all anxious. So my rule of thumb has always been, certainly no later than the following day. So if the offers were to be in by 5 o'clock on XYZ, then the response needed to be, once you've confirmed with whoever is the buyer, accepted buyer, I always try to make sure that all the other brokers get a phone call or a text or email, something that says, hey, thank you so much for your offer, and then informs them of the bad news part. But because everybody's waiting, everybody's anxious. So I really think part of this industry is that respect for that anxiety and trying to do whatever we can to take away some of that stress. So I'm going to say that that's the other thing that I think is really important, because some brokers will notify the people that won the offer process, and then everybody else is just left to discover it when they see it go pending or pending inspection. Roxanne?
I've also had that situation where the brokers that didn't get the house want to know how much, and you're not supposed to tell them that in case it goes back on the market. So that's not disclosed until it's closed.
Yeah. And everybody knows that, but I'll tell you, I asked too. Because you can say it was very strong, or you can even say it was over. You're not allowed to say a specific number because that could hurt your seller. So if it fails and they have to come back, that could harm them. But I have no problem saying, in this market, it's either over or it's strong. It's in there, but it's not usually, gosh, we went under market or under listing. So and I will tell you, I've been hearing people tell me that the appraisals are coming in shy. So we've had more appraisals coming in shy for certain areas. So some of those tricks we talked about earlier could help a buyer be successful if they have that scenario. The other thing, the timelines for making an offer, and the offer goes then to title and lender, and the offer gets posted to the generic office, whether it's thank you with Champions or whatever other office. So making sure that we understand that when we do make an offer, that's, maybe I'm off on it. When I've made an offer, I make it to the listing broker and their office. When the offer has been accepted, I then make sure that I send it into the title company and notify. I always have the lender information, notify the lender as well with those offers. I don't know if you guys do it any differently than that. Everybody does it the same
Escrow
way.
and title is who I send it to.
Pardon me?
Escrow and title is who I send it to.
Well, yeah, typically mine have been, title and escrow have been the same. Now, I remember when we didn't used to have the same title and escrow. It could be two different companies. But I haven't seen that lately at all.
Well, I know the ones that, one of the ones I use, the title company or the title address is Everett, and the escrow is, I'm sorry, title in Liquid, escrow in Everett. So two different offices. So I send it to both offices, even though it's the same company.
Yeah.
I don't
Well, that
rely
was
on,
smart. Good
yeah, I
point.
don't rely on them to forward it or,
Talk to each other.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was another thing in the, once that's done, once you have a signed around offer and identified your mutual date, the other thing that I noticed some people struggle with is the timelines. So I know that I am a paper pusher. I am not as good about entering everything in the computer that other people are. So my files, I write on a mutual acceptance and date. I write what the next timelines are. When is the earnest money supposed to come in? If there is an inspection, when is that 10-day turnaround? If the appraisal, when is that expected? So everything on my file, I put it on the cover because I don't want to dig through for the paperwork. 100 years ago, I knew a broker who was so organized. She had like a physician's file and had everything was clipped at the top on either side and had its own place. I'm not that. I just want to put it in the file and mark on the cover of the file so I know the information. Put the name of the companies that I'm dealing with and the phone numbers right there, because usually I just want to pick up the phone and make the call and get whatever done I need to get done. So for me, that's been very effective unless I didn't have the file with me. If it's an active file, I usually carry it with me. It's in my bag, in the car, or in the house, or in the office. But
So can I butt in?
go ahead.
So I know Pat's the same way as you. She has different color folders and blah, 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 everything's written on it. But there are other ways, depending, I don't know, maybe Rochelle or Evans does it that way. But you always have your transaction and stuff on your phone, on your computer. So it just depends which
Yeah.
way you kind of like.
We have that great, I still use, some people think it's old fashioned, but I still use the ones that we have in the office, our transaction sheets.
Yeah, I do too. I like them.
Yeah,
Yeah, our champions transaction
I
sheet.
think that's, and I'm saying older because I'm older too. I think that that is something that our older brokers use, where our newer brokers, they rarely even print out anything.
Yeah.
I like it. I just keep it in the inside of my folder.
Yeah.
Is that like a transaction checklist of what to do when kind of
Kind of,
thing
yeah.
that goes with it?
Not what to do when, but it has all of your information, like the other broker, when it was accepted. And you can find that on Champions, the back end of Champions.
Okay.
I
I think
They
I've seen it.
used to require it, but we never look at it in the office. I never look at it. So if you do it, that's fine, but that's not for me. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at what the escrow sends me. So
Now, let's talk about that for a moment too. Our commission worksheet, I do not understand why the Form 40 commission statement, why doesn't it have purchase price is, commission percentage is? I always write that on the top of it just in case my math is wrong. But it asks
I
for the
thought the MLS
transaction.
changed it.
Pardon me?
I thought the MLS changed it. I'm pretty sure it has a purchase price on it now. I'll look really quick.
Thank you. I did one just recently, but maybe it was an older form. Because that always bothered me because I thought, to my credit, I'm going in the phone and running the calculator to get the percentage, but
See,
yeah.
it's actually, some offices make the office staff do the Form 40s. We don't, because Pat felt like the staff don't really know what you should be getting, or if you gave a credit, or, so that's why they have you do them.
Okay.
I have to think what my password is.
Anyway, all the different forms and that checklist that we talked about earlier does have a good guideline. So if you're forgetting something, all you have to do is look at that to say, oops, what about that? I needed to check on that. Because I think the attentiveness to our timelines is what keeps us out of a suit.
Oh, you think that does that for you?
Oh, God, by paying attention to my timeline?
No, that transaction sheet? It
Well,
doesn't have anything with timelines.
I put it on it.
Oh, okay. Okay, 'cause it's not
You know
made
the
for
other thing
that.
it does? It asks you for the year of the home, so you know you've got the 22J. It has different parts and pieces that are like, oh yeah, what about that
Yeah.
day?
Sorry, I was looking at this. So it does have the purchase price, but you are right, it does not have the
Fill in the
um,
blank, the commission rate.
right, it does not have the commission.
So you fill in the numbers, but so I'm just saying that when I send that form out, I send it with, because they don't know what the purchase price actually is. If it's changed through a negotiation and a transaction, I think it's smart to put down, here's the final purchase price.
Well, I
here's the
sure hope
commission.
escrow knows the final price.
If they're looking at the 21 and then on the 34, it says it's something different. Or if we add something like, what's that line? The reduce the broker commission 3,500, credit the closing costs 3,500. That's never, or at least I've never seen that on a 21. Now it'll show up, what, on a
That's on a
34?
34.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just a protection to make sure that the information that you understand is the same thing that escrow is seeing. I think it's really important to keep an open communication status with the lender, because you want to know on our forms, basically it says you've got a 21-day window. I look at that, but I think that in this market where everything is so stepped up, almost all the lenders now have got a very open door about talking with you about what's going on in the process and where they're at with it. So that's something else I think is really important, is to make sure that you'll have that notice of the lender, keep that information handy, and use the phone, pick it up and just call them and say, hey, where are we on this? How are things moving? Let me see. Open communication with the selling broker. So the selling broker, more like it's usually the listing broker, that's a problem, but the selling broker can be, we're all different people and there can be best people to deal with. So I had broker was working with a listing broker, and the listing broker was making the job really difficult. My attitude is don't make it harder, because the loser is going to be in the transaction, whether it's seller or buyer or both. That the professionalism that we have to offer has got to be always projecting a courtesy and a respect. It is okay to say, gee, you didn't have the key available so we could access the property and my inspector was there. How are we going to correct that? Because you know what? Your inspector is going to charge for having to come back. So that's a conversation. That listing broker had required that you get access through them for the key, and then they weren't available with the key. You're going to have to work out what's reasonable in that regard. There's lots of goofy things that happen, but at least that was one recent event. And I just keep thinking, but keep the door open, because you can't blast people and make progress. You've got to be able to keep the door open. So that you can finally get somewhere you want to be successful in the closing. Status report for seller. I think that's really important. The sellers are anxious. So a status report, even if it's weekly or less, I feel like just to hear back from you, oh, the earnest money came in. Oh, we heard from the selling broker and here's what's going on right now. Those things give the seller a lot of confidence in what you're doing. And instead of thinking that you're not doing anything in the time frame in between, we had it on the market and now we have a contract, you're keeping them apprised of whatever else is going on. I notice there's a lot more activity when there's an HOA, trying to understand the HOA and what those rules are. And I'm also going to encourage you to keep looking at any of the title reports so you understand the title reports. And if you have questions, to ask that title report individual, hey, I'm not sure about this. Can you explain this part to me? Because if nothing else, you're going to want to be able to explain it to your seller. So those are almost every single time when you're dealing with other people. I feel like if you're aggressive or combative, it feels like you're destroying an opportunity instead of building an opportunity to keep a door open and maybe take care of issues. I always think of it as problem solving. We're trying to figure out how to solve a problem. And I say that to the selling brokers is, if I'm on the listing side of it, my responsibility to a selling broker is, what's the best way to work this out? How are we going to figure out how to get past this hurdle? I'm not trying to destroy the contract. I'm trying to make sure that we're successful. So if you keep that in mind, I think that that's really helpful, been in my life experience, helpful attitude. The closing plans, like what are you going to do about the keys and removing the posts and removing the signs? So you come up in this day and age, we're coming up so fast on those closing dates. You have to think of it ahead of time and make those arrangements. I don't know how you guys typically do it. I usually, because I'm out in areas that are further out, I usually like to leave the keys on the property somewhere in some whatever hidden little place it is. And then the other broker gets to know about it when we've closed, and then their responsibility is not to let the buyer know about it until it's recorded. For me, that's worked pretty well. I do not like to hang on to the keys for a buyer because that means in my schedule has to accommodate them. I don't like doing that. Oh, I don't know what tricks you guys use, but that's typically how I've approached it. Anybody have better ideas?
I've used different methods, meeting the agent or leaving the key, but I ran into a situation where the sellers were told by me and I had been told by my people that I sold that the people could take the house at recording when it recorded like a 2 or 3. Well, they kind of were like running behind. They kind of had a lot of stuff going on. They were kind of hoarders. They didn't plan their time very well. The person from escrow who went to sign them said, oh yeah, well, they don't take possession until 9 o'clock. Well, then my buyers called me back and said, or my sellers called me back and they go, oh, we don't have to be out until 9 o'clock. And I said, well, we already told them, the buyers, that they could be in at 3. So that caused kind of a conflict. So I think that's one thing that next time I'm gonna be extra clear on, which I was, but still, I had an escrow person say, oh yeah, you have till 9 o'clock. And I did call the escrow company and tell them, gee, I wish you wouldn't have said that because it really caused some problems. But that's something to take into consideration too.
Yeah, the biggest part of that is not until it's recorded. And I've also had people ask, well, can I just move my furnishings in? I know that there's some very generous people out there, but I always advise my sellers, don't do it. Don't do it. There's a liability issue there. And I wouldn't want to be in that position because you never know. So, but I've had sellers who just don't know, let them have them in the garage. And I've been fortunate because we haven't had an incident, but I would never recommend it. I always shy away from it. And primarily just because of insurance and liabilities.
Yeah, this was closed because it was recorded at the courthouse, but in the contract, it does say 9 o'clock. And so, and the escrow person, again, we had agreed, the buyers and the sellers had agreed on 3. And then the escrow person came in and said that. So the buyers thought, the sellers thought they could change that, and it would just cause a problem. So.
Yeah.
Is that common that possession is after recording and not at time of closing?
If you agree, yeah, on the contract, it says 9 p.m. All contract things are at 9 p.m. But if you buyers and sellers agree after recording, that's usually when I've had keys transfer. It's after
So I wanna
recording.
make sure
After
I
recording, it's
understand.
legal. Yeah.
Because you can have the contract close on a certain date, but after it closes, now the escrow is pushing the paperwork over to the county to record it. When you get the recording numbers, that's when it's official. Now the new people are on title. You have a second choice. You can either access the property once it's been recorded. And you have a second choice there for putting in XYZ number of days possession will be. So you've got recording or closing and then possession date as a separate date.
How long is recording? How long does recording take?
So actually since COVID, the courthouses have they've been behind.
Yeah.
So there's any of the Fidelity owned escrow companies have this in their contract that everybody signs at the close or at the signing. But if it closes and all monies are able to be distributed out, it can close then, even though the recording numbers may not come in till the following day. Prior to that, it was always recording numbers, then you got the keys. But they do have that stipulation now where you can get the keys prior to recording if the recording is behind. If you use those title companies. If you don't, that's fine. You just have to make sure then you're using another form to stipulate what you are doing.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, I also know because of COVID that there has been that lag time. So Janice, it typically was our experience that if you had all the paperwork in, signed, sealed, delivered in the morning, sometime that evening you would get a call that said, or at least that's been my experience for years, until COVID. And then I've had it where a day or even 2 days later, it gets recorded. So that was posing problems. So then the MLS has got a form that says, what is it? It's something about if it's delayed through no fault of any individual. And that was just because it was such an anomaly. It was so different. We have lived through an incredible historical time. Anyway, so I don't see those delays as much anymore. And I do see the possession timeframes look a little bit different. That's kind of been all over the board for how people want to work that. But typically it's such a smooth system. I haven't really had to be too worried or challenged by it. Here's in my next note. I'm terrible about this. When we change the status of our listing so it goes from active to pending inspection, you need to do that in the MLS. And the same thing when it goes to pending, and of course, when it goes to sold. So, and it's on a timeline for when you're supposed to do that. So I got dinged once. I totally missed it. Did not think to change it to sold. So it's out there looking pending for a long time for about $50 worth.
Yikes.
That was the hit for missing that closing entry. So that's another reason I started marking things on my file to make sure, oh yeah, did I get that piece done? So maybe other people, there's no problem, but sometimes I have trouble with some of those little episodes.
And
and-
if you, real quick, if you guys send your paperwork into the back end of Champions, Sam is working on trying to check you as far as if you put sold or not in the MLS. So she's trying to be a backup on that, but I know Eileen did get caught one time.
Oops.
On the Hall of Fame.
Okay. And then finally, I don't know, that communication file in PDF Creator. So Chris, our IT Chris, did a February Tech Time where he talked about how you go into PDF Creator and collect the communications file that you have on your computer for your client. And then you're able to submit that in one PDF file on your Champions site where we have our listing registered. It's not that it's hard. I think that it's just a matter of just walking through those steps and getting that done. It's kind of sweet actually, because you're just going in and capturing each document and then merging the document, title it and submit it so that they've got that for a backup in case there is any difficulties down the road. So that was another thing I thought was important. But I noticed that the February Tech Time, if you go look at that recording, Chris covered that material. So if you're not quite sure how to do it, he tells you how to do it. I'm going to kind of quickly hit a couple more things. Community postcards, just sold, door hangers, marketing mailers. We know about those things. Closing gifts. I have a practice of always giving, whether it's a buyer or a seller, they get a closing gift. The tax regulations used to, no, they still do. It's a $25 limit for a tax deduction as a closing gift.
$25.
$25, but you know, what do you find for 25 bucks? It's
Exactly.
horrible. So I also look at it like it's marketing. Me, it's a marketing expense. So there's another perspective. And the closing gift, I try to do whatever it is that I think is unique to that person or family or whoever it is, so that I feel like it's something, I guess I want to say thoughtful. It's not a just generic something, or maybe it's because I haven't come up with a generic something that I thought was good. But I want, when I do something like that, I also want them to be able to talk about it with other people. So I really do look at it like a marketing. I always check back with my guys once they've gotten into something. I want to know a follow-up visit or a follow-up phone call of how's your new home? Is everybody happy? How are the kids doing in school? Do they like their new teachers? And then also a card thanking the seller. And that's when you get to say, I so loved working with you. I am available, so please, refer me to your family or friends, whoever needs me. I'm happy to answer any questions. It's a thank you card, but it's also marketing. And then, yeah, I use the MLS contact for my database. I don't use a separate, different program. Like I said, I just don't type enough to be able to do all these different sites. So I make sure I update the information in that contact database. Where did the seller move to? Or even some information maybe in the bottom lines about whatever happened there. And one of the things that some really good people do is they always ask for the online review so that they capture that review of how do you like me so far? I really struggled for a long time of how do you ask for that? Because it feels awkward and embarrassing to me. I don't have the personality for that part. And I have to be also smart enough that to send out, techie enough. Rochelle, you probably can do this just in your sleep. You send out the request for a review. But one of the things I do, now that to me is important for marketing because it does make a difference. So it's an online review.
And where is that? How do you, where's that? I've never seen that.
In asking for a review.
Yeah, you said it's
So
on.
usually it's going to go somewhere like on a Facebook or
Google
I
Business.
even have a website. It's something like that. It's going to go in one
No,
of
but I
the-
mean, what is it that you sent out? Is it you said it's on,
usually a link.
pardon?
Usually a link. There's a little link label. Like if I would do it with my website, I can send
Oh,
out a little link
okay.
that says, how do you like me?
Okay,
Also, real quick, anytime you do a transaction at Champions, we send out a review for you. And they're posted on our Google. And if we get a review for you, we always send you an email so that you know that you got a 5-star review or whatever. They do not post any of the bad reviews, only the good.
Okay.
Okay.
so you guys send it whether we know it or not?
Yes.
Okay, because I did have that happen once, and they sent it to Ann. My
Yes.
client's name was
And there
Ann
was a-
Timberland, and it was a boo-boo, and they sent
Yeah.
her, yeah. So I don't know if I like
Out of
that.
the years, yeah, but you have to realize that out of all the years we've been doing it, and it's been like 3, we've had actually only 2 mistakes.
But I think if my customer is going to be sent something from the office, I don't know, I guess I kind of want it to go through me instead of coming from the office, because then they almost
You
feels like
can
the
do
office is.
your, well,
checking
we
up on
already
you or
know
something.
about you and we've already taken care of you. We never send to your people because that's what you requested. But
Yeah, okay.
that was one very small mistake
Yeah.
that got kind of overblown, and I understand, but boy, we have gotten a lot of good reviews for you guys, and you guys aren't doing it. And technically you work for Champions
Mhm.
under Champions name. It's nice to have good reviews because we have a lot of bad reviews that in the past that have been online. And we've had to really work hard to get those down the line further so that they're not the ones coming up. And wouldn't you, if you were Janice, want a company that has good reviews? Because my clients are gonna go look at your reviews. And it may not be Janice, but because she's wearing the hat for Champions, her clients are going to say, oh, Champions isn't that great. You know, I don't really know Janice. Maybe I don't want this company. So that's kind of where we're coming from. But we do know, and we don't send anything out for you.
So then how do they know? How does it record back for Rochelle? Rochelle did a listing. She worked really hard. She gets great review. How does that show up?
Well, it usually shows up with her name. And then it will
In
be on our,
Facebook or where?
it depends. The client gets to decide where they want to review. So they can review on Facebook or they can review on Google.
Is it the
And
Google?
so we do have some people that have been reviewed on Facebook and some on Google. We have a lot on Google. But then at the office level, we send, when we get a good review, we send that to the broker and to Pat. So Pat knows. So we'll send an email saying, hey, you just got a 5-star review, blah, blah, blah. And we'll send you that review from that person, which then you can use on your website or you can use on your testimonial places that you do, you know, testimonials. So we don't take them and not share them. We want to share them with you. And we pay the cost that it every month to have that service. So, and we don't charge to do it. And it's very tricky because if you saw the spreadsheet that we use and keep track of everybody's clients' emails, everybody's, when they sell, or I mean, is it a listing? Is it a buying? Is it, what's the listing number? When is it supposed to close? I mean, we try really hard to keep all of that information straight.
Nice. Thanks for doing that.
All right. So my last note is just evaluate your process. Always look at yourself in terms of what went well, what I want to do differently. It just makes you a better professional. So whatever that process means for you, and I'm going to encourage you to start including a partner to do that so that you're bouncing your ideas off somebody else. It's not just you looking at the same information, but try and include another professional person that you respect and start improving yourself as a professional. Our next meeting is that Tuesday, April 26th, to talk about safety issues, colleague partners, rules and regulations, kind of a miscellaneous, maybe even more about that review process. Brenda, that'd be interesting too, because I'm still not quite clear on it. I want to have them pull up my name and see 700 5-star reviews.
They're gonna see
I
your
don't care
name.
if I know it. I want the general public to see it. So, all right. Thank you. Thank
Eileen,
you,
real
every
quick.
one of you, for being
You
here
can-
tonight.
You can go to Google, Champions Google, and you'll see all the reviews there. If you want.
What do we go down to? 3? Are we like 3 and above? It shows. But if you're 1 and 2,
Right.
Really?
good,
Okay.
good
They-
job.
That's good. Yeah, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, they don't discard them, but they never post them. They will, you know, they'll send them to us, but
Okay.
they never post them. They only post a certain
Nice
amount of
things.
that. Yeah. But
I
we've
used to
never
think of
gotten. to
Facebook like that. I don't anymore, but it used to be fun. All right, you guys
I
have a
think
good night.
Real quick, for the last minute, at the beginning, you talked about doing the quarterly review thing.
Yeah,
At the beginning of this class, I think of the very first session, you sent out a bunch of attachments that was like a planning checklist to ensure your system works and internal review analysis and a spring business checklist. So there's all these attachments that were sent out. I don't know if those are helpful for people to keep track of what they're doing.
so for me, when I use those kinds of tools, I really spend a lot of time at the end of the year doing that kind of work of, I want to know how much money I spent, how much time I was on the road. I want to know what it costs me to be in this industry. It's freaking expensive.
It is. Yeah.
This is not a cheap business to be in. So if I'm going to do all this, I need to know, am I actually making any money? Years ago, I did this, and it's because I like looking at numbers and trying to figure it out. When you take a 3% commission, it averages out to actually 1% by the time you're done.
Right.
And I looked at that year over year, and I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting. Because there's an awful lot besides the B&O, E&O, L&I, the office fees, the print copies, the gas, which now, take a look at that ratio. I put $40 in my Prius. A Prius. No.
Oh, you're the Prius driver? Oh, that
Uh-oh.
explains it.
Definitely the Prius driver. Anyway, so for me, I really want to know because I also feel like I file everything. So when I do my tax, I think I told you guys my background is I used to do individual tax filings. So man, I keep my receipts. I have everything labeled. I have everything deducted. So yeah, I want to know what makes me the money. Where am I going with that?
But if you do it on a quarterly thing like this, then you're able to.
Yeah, if I would do it on a quarterly basis, it would be a lot easier. Here's what I do on a quarterly basis, Janice. I take all those flippin' receipts, I sort them, and I file them. But I am not adding those until the end of the year,
Right.
when I put aside the time to do the tax filing. And I typically like to do my tax filing by February. No, not this year. This year, we're looking at March before I got mine done. And I'm like devoted to that stuff. So I gotta tell you, it's life. Life can get in the way. And when you talk about routines and trying to be successful with routines, you remember Brian Buffini was the big speaker. He was funny and fun and lighthearted. But one of the things that stuck with me is he said he had finished, you want to halfway kill him too. Oh, I just finished 11 transactions that day.
Oh, God.
Liar, liar. And so he said he had finished 11 transactions. It was 11:30 at night, but he knew he was doing well because he still stayed and did his thing was the 10 postcards a day.
Oh, I have
So he still
have a-
stayed and I'm thinking, you know what?
what?
You have somebody preparing those. All you have to do is sign them. So it did kind of make me laugh, but I respected the idea that no matter what's on your plate, if you make a commitment to follow through that commitment, and that's how you'll build your business because you're still doing the same things to keep in touch with people.
Well, maybe one of these classes is about some of that record keeping too, and how best to manage that. And well, I don't know if anybody else wants to hear that, but it would be helpful for me. At the end of the year, I'm gonna have to figure it all out. So
Oh, on those,
Oh.
and I'm sorry, but one more thing, you know, a really good tool for your home sellers? You send them the closing docs and highlight the things that they get to deduct on their tax filing.
Mm.
Now they think you're smart. Just one more thing.
Janice, I think I have, I'll look for it. I have an Excel thing that my tax person sent me because I had to keep every receipt, everything for my when I hosted students. So every grocery receipt, everything.
Yeah.
And it was great what he sent me, and it was easy. It was
Yeah.
That'd be
January
good. Maybe
through
we do that,
December.
Brenda, if you get that
I will
set up, maybe
definitely.
we could do that as part of our kind of miscellaneous things for the next meeting coming up.
I have one like that for my property, my investment properties, but it's
Yeah.
a whole different thing to try to do it for my own. I mean, I can set up the same spreadsheet, I guess, and just do it with expenses and try to keep track of it that way. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have it. I have it. He had advertised, he worked with a lot of real estate brokers,
Oh,
so
that'd be nice. Yeah. Thanks.
I'll look for it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
You guys, it's very fun to see you again tonight.
Yeah. Same here.
We'll look forward to the next meeting on the 26th.
Rochelle was so
Yeah.
quiet. You didn't even say hi.
Okay, Rochelle, are those headphones, like, are you listening to us
Yes.
quietly or are you listening to music?
That's for me to know and you to find out.
Don't forget the
Quiz
Thursday
comes
meeting.
next.
I will be there on Thursday. Thanks, Eileen.
Oh, Rochelle, I have carrot cake cupcakes with cream cheese frosting.
She said she's coming. Didn't you say you're coming?
Yes, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said you weren't.
Yeah, she is coming.
I like
Oh,
that you're
good.
trying to entice me though.
Yeah. Yeah, English muffin sandwiches too.
Oh
All
boy.
right. Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you.
Bye.
You're welcome. Thank you.